Oh, it's already being recorded. Perfect. Welcome, everyone. We'll give a minute or two for people to join. Thanks for joining us today. I'll give it one more minute, top of the hour. Hopefully everyone can get in there. Welcome, welcome. If you just joined us, we'll get started here shortly. There we go. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. So good morning and welcome everyone. This is our webinar number 3, where we're focusing on the use of AI in clinical research as a complement to your staff versus a replacement. Our guest speaker today is Quan Doan. He is our VP of Technology at SDC Clinical, and we are delighted to share his insights on how to do this effectively as you implement in your own organizations. We have a lot to cover today in a short amount of time, so please enter your questions into the chat box and we will compile them all at the end of this session, and then we'll provide answers to all of you in our follow-up communications, along with the ebook, which has the AI Practical Guide to Implementation. So with that, please welcome Quan Doan.
Hi, thank you, Christine, for the introduction. So once again, welcome to part 3 of our AI and clinical research series. Today, we're going to shift from security and oversight to implementation and augmentation of AI in today's clinical research landscape, from managing risk to enabling smarter, faster decisions across your clinical trials. So that's the goal that we're all going after. So again, AI, especially right now, kind of with some of the questions around securities and vulnerabilities, AI is often painted as the villain in the workforce story, right? You see headlines in the news all the time of automations eliminating jobs, but in clinical research, that reality is very, very different, right? So we looked at a number of studies, and that showed that 77% of AI adopters report increased role satisfaction among clinical staff. And that's primarily because AI is relieving them of all of those redundant tasks and allowing them to focus on high-value oversight items, right? Analysis and patient engagement. This session is about understanding how we protect the human core of clinical research while taking advantage of smarter tools, right? Giving us a lot more time in our day to focus on the things that we need to. AI is not here to replace people or humans. It's here to empower us, right? To make us more efficient, work smarter, not harder, right? A recent survey of over 150 global clinical research sites found that 68% of the staff felt more engaged after they were introduced to AI tools or were allowed to use AI in their day-to-day work, right? Citing less data firefighting and more patient interaction. Things like AI medical scribes, right, that can document patient encounters in real time, reducing clinicians' manual, entry of data or taking notes. That reduce their time on that aspect of their job by 72%, right? And saving 24% of time on note taking, allowing the doctors to see more patients, right? You take this to another level where, in China, for example, there was a kind of an AI-enabled clinical site where, the PI had a virtual twin or an avatar that was AI-enabled, talked, spoke, moved like the PI, and they did a lot of the initial kind of intake and onboarding, right? And then when it came down to the meat and potatoes of what they needed to see the physician for, and that's when the real twin came out to play. This shift in perspective from artificial to augmented intelligence is essential for understanding how AI can be used ethically, responsibly, and effectively in clinical trials. Reminder here that this is not about machines taking over like in iRobot, the movie, right? But it's about how we can use intelligent tools to amplify our capabilities. So before we get into the how and why of AI and machine learning in clinical research, I want to make sure that we have the same baseline if you missed the first two webinars, right? So at a high level, right, what is AI? AI refers to computer systems that can perform tasks requiring human-like intelligence. These tasks include problem solving, decision making, and even learning from experience, right? Understanding the basics of the AI technology is essential to comprehend its potential in clinical research. And again, we see this not just in the clinical research space, but the AI technology out there is growing very quickly, very fast. And that allows us and impacts multiple industries, right? Including healthcare, finance, transportation. So a couple of key terms that you'll see floating around within the AI space. One is machine learning, right? So this is kind of the basis of everything that you have out there for AI. Machine learning are algorithms that are programmed to analyze large data sets and help identify patterns and make predictions, right? We can train these algorithms using labeled data where we know what the output is supposed to look like, right? Or as you see kind of the shift in the last couple of months, more through unsupervised learning, right? Where algorithms can discover patterns on its own. Machine learning has revolutionized many fields from image recognition to natural language processing or NLP, right? So one of the things that makes AI interact and think like us is that natural language processing component, right? This allows them to, there's lots of different models out there, and this allows computers to understand and process human language, right? Facilitating communication between systems and researchers. Things like ChatGPT that you see out there, right? OpenAI. Those are large language models that are predicated on natural language processing, right? That can analyze text, right? If you've used that in your personal life, you can have it summarize notes for you and produce content, right? So generative AI, and it's very much like human responses. So this is where you see those things like virtual assistants and automated customer service. And then kind of a newer tool in the AI arsenal is computer vision, right? So earlier we talked about natural language processing where they can actually read text and interpret text. And now we're starting to get more and more savvy with what it's learning and being able to analyze images, right? So there's lots of tools out there right now if you were to go on the marketplace where there's computer vision algorithms that can detect objects, recognize faces, right? Classify images. In our space, particularly in clinical research, right? You can use it to do image analysis to diagnose disease and assist in surgical procedures, right? You have those AI-assisted robots that can go in and help. We see a lot of this, especially in the Far East. So again, the integration of AI into our space, right, clinical trials and health research offers a lot of advantages in its overall transforming the conduct of clinical research, right? And this, again, is changing very rapidly over the last, I want to say 6 months to a year, because they're continuously learning, right? And more data is becoming more available. And as people are taking on the kind of AI mantra, we do have a lot more data that's present out there for us to analyze, right? So again, some of the key benefits here, right? We can see it, see lots of tools out there now in the recruitment space, right? We can quickly identify suitable candidates for trials, reducing screen failures and reducing the time and cost associated with various trial phases, right? You're looking at EMR data automatically, doing patient matching based on kind of key terms, and then reducing human labor in terms of data entry at the site level as well. And so you do see more and more sites picking up kind of that piece of the tech as well. And again, data-driven insights, right? So the incorporation of AI into our space, again, allows us, data management teams, biostatistics, to perform enhanced data analysis and improve prediction accuracy, right? We see some of this in coding automation, right? So machine learning models can sift through those vast data sets, identify patterns and correlations that may be overlooked by humans, right? Because we do tend to have our biases, and we look at data in a way that's more like, this is how I've always looked at it. I'm going to look for these type of errors and possibly miss these other upcoming trends that you would see in the data, right? This results in more reliable insights, allowing researchers to make more informed decisions faster throughout the clinical trial process. And again, one of the things here is better patient outcomes, right? So you're seeing clinical sites use this again, AI to help personalize treatment plans. A lot of us also have, used the idea of, virtual assistants, right? I'm sure if you have a symptom or a question, you're asking ChatGPT what you think this might be. And so again, leveraging AI with the vast amount of training that it has results in more effective therapies and improving patient outcomes, right? We can also leverage AI to look for trends in potential adverse events or SAEs as well, ensuring timely interventions and improving overall patient safety, right? You're seeing more and more models, right? Especially now with kind of the virtual patient as well, right? So we're seeing kind of the initiation of clinical trials where machine learning can potentially predict how patients will respond to specific treatments, right? Allowing for more tailored and effective care strategies. A lot of this now is being done on the preclinical space. It's slowly shifting into first-in-human trials. And again, the big thing here is, AI is, we're going to leverage these tools to optimize kind of the future of trial and drug development processes, right? Ensuring that, decisions are supported by comprehensive data analysis. And again, looking at broader data, not just, items specific to your protocols and things of that nature. So just talked about how AI can help us do things faster, better, with higher quality. But there are challenges and considerations that come with this, right? Especially for smaller organizations that have to navigate kind of a lot of the gray space and the unknowns. So the implications of AI adoption extend well beyond technical considerations, impacting regulatory compliance, ethical standards, and patient trust, right? Organizations have to be prepared to invest in the training and the resources to overcome these obstacles and promote a culture of innovation while ensuring patient safety and data integrity, right? So again, understanding these challenges is essential for how your organization can leverage AI effectively. A couple of things that come up right away when talking about implementing AI is cost and implementation, right? There is it can be a big initial investment into AI technologies, right? Which can pose a barrier for smaller organizations or those with limited resources, right? A lot of times you can buy these tools off the shelf, but then you have no one to maintain them. And so again, we have to focus on when we're implementing these advanced solutions, not only it's the financial commitment, but also time and expertise. At a recent conference, it was a question about, this gentleman was new to the AI space and clinical research, and had a question about, are there all-in-one AI solutions out there? Is it even possible? Because, right, if you have cost and implementation for each individual tech, let's say one for protocol development, one for CSR writing, right, one for data cleaning, that cost can increase exponentially very, very quickly, right? And so I think folks are working towards that solution. but we're still kind of pretty siloed within our functional areas, right? And having each individual technologies for each one of those spaces. Data quality, right? Again, the big question mark in the AI space is, would you trust, AI to make all of your clinical decisions for you? Right now, the answer is no, right? Poor quality data can lead to misleading results, right? That can compromise patient safety and reduce the overall effectiveness of AI models. And we know that, in this clinical trial space, once folks have a negative experience, right, we tend to shy away from then continuing the implementation. So it's very key for organizations to prioritize robust data sets, make sure they're clean for effective model training and validation, and then that will overall increase the comfort level that we have with AI in our space. Couple of other things that we hit on really quick: data privacy and security, right? That's always top of mind here, especially with GDPR and HIPAA compliance, right? We do handle lots of sensitive information. And so as you're using these tools, we need to understand, one, how those tools are interpreting and using that data, right? Is there any data leak with respect to data privacy? And we have to ensure that compliance is critical, right? Because we have to maintain that patient trust and avoid, unfortunately, right, legal repercussions. One of the newer topics that have come up within kind of the AI space, kind of just like humans, we touched on earlier, right, is algorithm transparency and bias, right? Ensuring transparency in the AI models is key for us to gain that confidence. You don't want to go into a tool and just think that it's a black box. You don't know how it works. And so how does it make the right decision, or is it making the right decision for what I'm looking to do? So here, as we start introducing tech and AI tech into our space, we do have to address that potential bias in the machine learning algorithms, right? That could skew results. And so we'll touch on it a little bit later in the presentation, right? But this is where you have the human in the loop is key in this aspect with respect to training those models, right? And then the last piece here is really about integrating into existing systems, right? Integrating AI into current clinical trial infrastructure can be a heavy technical and operational burden or hurdle. Organizations must ensure compatibility to maximize the effectiveness of their AI initiatives and streamline workflows. And then one of the main things, again, kind of the topic of this webinar, right, is a lot of it is workforce and workflow adaptation, right? There is that fear, that resistance, that job displacement, right? That these AI tools, these robots will replace, our jobs and our roles within the clinical trial space. But that's really the opposite of what we're here to talk about today, right? Because that's going to take away the mundane tasks, the things that we don't want to do on a day-to-day, and then allow the humans to focus and use their skill set for more complex things, right? And again, at the end of the day, folks generally don't like change, right? We don't have to redesign our workflows. If it isn't broke, why fix it, right? So the other piece in here is challenging the status quo when you're introducing AI. All right. Oops, sorry about that. All right. So again, talking about those repetitive tasks, right? And how we have a happier workforce. So clinical teams right now, on a couple of surveys, spend up to about 40% of their time on repetitive data tasks, right? Something as simple as query generation, external data reconciliations, site status updates. And this is where, AI kind of shines, right? We can automate all of these types of tasks with high accuracy, speed, and compliance checks. Again, this isn't about removing roles or replacing people. It's about reclaiming time, right? Because time is something that we can't produce more of, and reducing human error. A real world example that we ran across, we worked with a sponsor who was using predictive AI query automation, and they saw a 34% reduction in query volume within the first 2 cycles, right? So again, when we're automating those low-level tasks, it lets us focus on protocol fidelity, right? Risk mitigation, patient outcomes, the things that the agencies really want us to focus on, right? Things like patient recruitment. Again, we threw out numbers earlier, right? Up to a 70% cost reduction because you're not seeing those screen failures anymore, right? You're enrolling patients faster. So your time from first patient in to last patient out can be sped up to upwards of up to 40%, right? Study startup, the setup phase, when you're greenlighting sites, right? Being able to parse through all their data, making sure that their documents are generated well and correctly. And not only that, but even into EDC database development and within the data management realm, right? We can shorten things that used to take weeks and months into a matter of days. One of the other things that we can also do in terms of workflow efficiency, right, is looking at, there's kind of Metadata has this out there along with a couple of other vendors, is AI enhanced EDC platforms, right, that automate data validations and flag inconsistencies in real time, reducing manual data entry errors and accelerating database lock times. Right, you're seeing this in eSource solutions as well. And again, all of this allows the clinical staff to shift their focus from doing data entry and transcribing, paper source to electronic source or EDC to then focus on that patient engagement, right, and oversight rather than those administrative tasks. There was another tool out there that, they looked at actually leveraging EHR data, right, because we do have a couple of major players in the EHR space to match patients to appropriate clinical trials that are listed out on clinicaltrials.gov with high accuracy, right? In some real world testing, they reduced the screening time by 40%, right, to make data-driven enrollment decisions. All right, so shifting more to our clinical trial space with CRAs, right, data managers, medical monitors, right? So a couple of things here, right, kind of in the legacy space, right, where we're not using kind of AI-assisted tools, right? CRAs were kind of flying blind, right? You go into a monitoring visit, had a handful of reports that, that you could leverage from EDC, but you didn't have tools that were proactively identifying risks for you, right, and compliance. So this is where kind of AI-assisted or AI assistance for RBQM or quality-based monitoring comes into play, right? You can plan your site visits based on impact and focus on the sites that need that versus blindly just going to visit all of your sites, right? There was a case study out there where CRA travel, while leveraging kind of this site risk compliance with AI was reduced by 22%, and you had a near zero loss in quality. We know that manual oversight is inherently error prone, right? When we have automated tools that are highly predictive, they can apply consistent logic, detect subtle data drift, right? If we're looking at kind of the gamut of what can go wrong within our data, and then trigger timely queries. Another phase 3 that we worked on, right? We talked with our sponsor on this one, and they were leveraging, again, AI tools within monitoring, and that reduced data discrepancies by almost 46%. One of the other key things here, though, and as we're again adopting these tools into our functional areas in our spaces, regulators are starting to ask for explainability, right? So as we shift in our space, regulatory is going to shift as well. So again, as you're implementing these AI-driven tools, right, we want to make sure that they can track every signal and flag those are auditable, those are Part11 compliant, and then that becomes part of your compliance defense, not a risk to your clinical trial, right? And again, we touched on this earlier with clinical sites adopting AI, because those groups are adopting AI, right, for consistency. That's an upstream from where we are, right? That allows for more consistent data, document collection, right? And it really elevates that idea that we have in our space of garbage in, garbage out, that upstream kind of AI consistent data, right, from the clinical sites reduces the cleaning that we have to do downstream. So what do we get? We get better data, we get faster submissions and fewer audit headaches. Within the data management role, right, again, we look at anomaly detection. We're flagging issues 3 to 5 days earlier than manual review, right? Sometimes we know, when we do manual reviews, people want to put that off because it's a mundane task. It takes, we're supposed to do this, once a month or every 2 weeks. And now they have tools that'll help facilitate and allow us to really just focus on the kind of the key data error issues and not have to thumb through, volumes and volumes of data, right? Medical monitors have tools now that can, especially when it comes to safety systems, right? Receiving risk signals, right? They can look at patients with trending lab outliers, reducing AE detection time, right? Again, surfacing all of this, reducing that manual time. So again, this is augmentation in action, right? You're getting better decisions and less friction. Again, with AI, right, we're sharpening our clinical instincts and enhancing decision-making across the board. So when AI handles, nearly 70% of your repetitive data oversight, we can finally use the time that, where we need to, right, where it was intended. So we're looking at analysis over administrative work. We're being more proactive, right, prevention over reaction. And then again, we talked on this in the last webinar, and webinar 2, right, is that strategic oversight and eliminating that, what we call spreadsheet surfing, right? All of our spreadsheet trackers out there. This is more than just saving time, right? It's insights amplified. So we've just talked up AI and how it complements what we can do. So how do we get there, right? One of the big things in terms of when we polled folks at a conference on AI implementation, right? A couple of things came up in terms of how to get started. So one, in order to make AI a true partner for you, right? You got to pilot this process, right? No one likes, senior management to come in and say, hey, you have to use these tools. We definitely want to find a solution that works for the group that we're trying to assist, right? So one, we'll need to identify a high burden, low value task that we can automate, right? One of the things that we want to do is not implement AI across the board, but pilot this in a single workflow. That way we have something that's measurable, right? So something like using NLP to scan images and come up with an outcome, right? You can see and measure how much time that saves a reader in terms of actually pulling up the images, trying to find what they're looking for, the artifacts within the images, and then notating that down, versus having an AI-generated tool that can help de-identify, make that read and what that time difference is, right? So that you know what the actual impact and what the value is to your organization. One of the key things that we also found was needing to engage your operational staff early, right? Again, top-down decision-making, you often leaves those operational staff folks, the people that are doing the work on the ground, out of the loop. And so they don't get their concerns addressed, and they don't get to provide feedback. Remember, we're trying to, help them understand that these tools are helping them, not eliminating them, right? And then we do have to invest in practical AI training for all roles, right? Again, just that basal level of knowledge, understanding how AI works, right? It's definitely not perfect, but understanding where we can help facilitate AI, and even that AI training and learning, treating those models, that will help staff be more comfortable with the tools that they're using as well. And then at the end of the day, we have to share our outcomes, right? Look, celebrate our wins, learn from our setbacks, with the goal of empowering our teams, right, and not replacing them. A recent example that we had as well with this piloting process was leveraging AI to generate UAT data for testing EDC database systems, right? We focused and trained the AI ML processes to generate test data for more simple, single question type edit checks, right? Simple fields, and it actually generated the data, imported that data into EDC so that, data managers didn't have to enter that data, and that triggered all of the positive, negative test results, right? This allowed the DM team to actually focus on those more complex checks, right? Like cross-form checks, looking at multiple variables and testing more real-world scenarios, right? Resulting in far more robust testing in the same amount of time that would have taken us previously. So again, so focusing on kind of the human element here, right? So far from making roles obsolete, AI creates new opportunities for skill building, right? So again, we have to look, find, and build skills to interpret and validate those AI outputs, right? Understanding how even the best algorithms can have bias. And so how do we detect that? And then at the end of the day, right, having AI informed protocol design. So again, having human in the loop, but looking at how, our human skill set can complement what the AI has generated for that protocol development. Again, companies that have invested in AI literacy or understanding of AI see 30% higher adoption rate and longer retention among staff, right? So training people to work with the AI secures long-term talent and multiplies your impact, making you far more efficient. A couple of things on the screen here. We have, this is an example of an AI tool where we trained our statistical programmers, right, in terms of how this tool worked. And they were relieved to have an AI assistant that could allow end users to ask them simple data questions, right, and not have to program ad hoc TLFs. We involved our statistical programming team early in the process and the development to help train the AI models, right, and understand, common data questions that could be applied across multiple clinical trials, so that allows our human programmers, right, to spend more time on therapeutically focused TLF development. And on the screen here, right, so you have the question that was asked, and within the tool itself, you do have that transparency where you can actually rerun the backend query of what you would typically see in a SAS program, how it answered that question, right? We allow our statistical team to actually modify this and save it to basically reduce that secondary validation effort, right, on your SAS code. And then these types of questions are stored within the tool that then allows them to re-ask these questions across multiple trials without having to reprogram and revalidate, TLF listings and whatnot. So as we close this session, right, the message is hopefully is clear, right, that AI isn't here to replace clinical officials, but to empower them, right? When we thoughtfully integrate AI, it enhances decision-making, streamlines complexity, and frees up the clinical study teams to focus on what matters the most, right? Patients, quality, and the quality of the outcomes. So again, we want to shift from, artificial intelligence to more of augmented intelligence, right? AI is a transformative force. It's here to stay, but its potential is best realized through a symbiotic relationship with human expertise, critical thinking, creativity, and empathy, right? It's hard to recreate empathy in the AI space. Again, because the real power of AI isn't in replacing humans, but elevating it, right? Again, freeing us up for high value specialized tasks in patient care. Clinical research, I think, will always remain a human endeavor. And with the right tools, we'll make it smarter, faster, and more human-centered than ever. And with that, I will hand it off to Christine if we have any questions on the panel.
I don't see any at the moment, but I'll give everyone a chance to maybe type in a few. And again, we can certainly make sure if there's a lot of them coming in, we can follow up in our communications for you, make sure we answer everything. And we'll also be getting that ebook out to you as well. So I'll leave it open for a minute as you're typing, thinking, processing. Thank you so much, Quan. That was fantastic. Really just informative. So hopefully you guys have some great takeaways.
And again, I know we are at time as well. So, if there are any questions, we'll certainly follow up via email as well. And again, as Christine mentioned, they'll be present, and we may have some of those in our ebook as well.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I haven't seen anything come in, so maybe we'll go ahead and end it for now. If you need to follow up, with emails for additional questions, we're happy to answer those as well. So everyone, thank you so much for joining. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.